first one, I'm going to look at your just very kind of early career at Wolves. So what was it like coming through at Wolves? And we spoke to Mark Little recently, and he was talking about kind of interactions with the first team lads. He was saying that it was quite a tough atmosphere at times, in a good sense, in terms of, you couldn't mess around. There was people like Paul Ince, Mick McCarthy.
Yeah, it's obviously a big part of my development. Breaking into the team was sort of around, I think I made my debut under Mick McCarthy. I think it was against Southend in the Cup was my actual Wolves debut. And then I went out and learned Sheffield Wednesday for over a year. But I mean, generally around the place, it was kind of a very old school mentality in terms of the dressing room and young players coming through. You kind of had to earn the right to, compete with the first team and being a part of the first team group. So to be fair, the lads around that period of time were really helpful with me. Like you had your Jody Craddocks, Marcus Hannemans, players like that were really. Carl Henry was there for a long time as well. All lads that you could turn to and ask a couple of questions, little bit here and there, a bit of advice, and it was a really good group. Yeah.
What was Mick McCarthy like? I mean, as a younger pro, how much interaction would you have with like the first team manager at that point?
Not a great deal. I mean, I must have been a bit of a pain because I used to keep going up and saying, I think I should be playing. I think you should get me in the squad. Rah, rah, rah. And he used to say, until you've played 100 games in the Football League, you won't be playing team at Wolves. But I think it just showed a little bit of hunger and obviously confidence from myself to do that.
Sheffield Wednesday. So obviously that was a really successful time for you. I mean, firstly, just what was it like playing for a club like Sheffield Wednesday? And the city just seemed like it was absolutely buzzing during that whole period.
Yeah, it was kind of like the rebirth a little bit of the club. I mean, relegated from the Championship, obviously, and then I went Christmas till the end of the first season, and then in League One, and then the full second season, which was where I obviously made the number of appearances there. And it was brilliant. Loved every moment of it. Really, really good city, and the fans obviously took to me. And I mean, it was one of those where I think Sheffield Wednesday wanted to sign me. Wolves weren't prepared to sort of let it happen. Sheffield United were obviously in that league at the same time as well. I think there was 35,000 at the derby games. So you can imagine that in League One. And we actually hipped Sheffield United to the automatic promotion spots.
Any names stick out to you from that dressing room that were either just obviously top draw players or just kind of just really good lads that you got along with?
We had a real crazy gang. It was like we had Mikel Antonio, Rob Jones, Miguel Lira, Stephen Bywater, Nicky Weaver, David Prutton, Ben Marshall, Gary Medine. And
was there a lot to handle for the gaffer? Because it just seems like a lot of lively characters in there.
I think it really worked. Like it was Megson was the manager. Obviously, he's like a Sheffield-based manager anyway, and it was a big deal for him to manage the club. And to be fair, he signed most of the players, so all the players worked hard for him, and he got everyone pulling in the right direction.
You mentioned Mikel Antonio. Obviously, right now he's doing so well in the Premier League. But I mean, I think wasn't he a winger back then as well?
Yeah, well, he obviously bags of power and pace and strength as well. He was a strong lad, so. I mean, you can see the natural shift for him to go down the middle from the wings. Probably a little bit less tight spaces and stuff like that. It's probably a bit simpler for him to play down the middle. One thing I didn't know is that he was so good in the air. He scores a lot of headed goals now. Never saw that when I was at Sheffield Wednesday.
Back onto Wolves. So you actually got a Team of the Year for item here as well. Yeah. I think firstly, just how difficult was that dressing room when you first came in? Because I think I've heard so much about that it was kind of on the back of the Premier League, and there was, it just didn't seem like it was something was clicking there really. I don't know what you felt about the place at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a weird season for me because I'd just come off the high of obviously being promoted with Sheffield Wednesday, played all the games. I think I got runner-up for Player of the Year and stuff at Sheffield Wednesday that year. And then going back to Wolves, obviously it was a little bit of a lull for a lot of the players who've been in the Premier League for a good few years. International players who perhaps felt that they've done enough to stay in the Premier League. There was the change in manager. We had Solbakken come in. So there was a bit of a mixed bag of the dressing room, and it kind of took, it obviously took the next relegation to really, not clear the decks, but just to start afresh and to get a dressing room of lads that were all sort of focused in the same direction.
Do you think there was a lack of appreciation for maybe how difficult the Championship is?
I'd say more of like not naivety from the manager, kind of not really knowing the league. I don't think he knew much about the division. combination of that and a mixed bag of dressing room where you've got so many different players from different managers' eras coming together and trying to, do well for Wolves.
On to positive times. I mean, for me, straight away, you became captain. So at what point did that happen? Like, how proud were you of that moment? How did that even come about?
So that kind of happened so Kenny Jackett took over when Wolves went down to League One. He kind of introduced like 6 or 7 under-21 players, myself included, into the first team fold. And it was Sam Ricketts who was the captain that season. I was like vice captain for, when he missed a game or two. I'd wear the armband, which was kind of like a little learning period for me to kind of get the ropes. And obviously when Sam departed, then I took over full time in terms of the captaincy.
Is that pretty young to be a captain?
I think I was around 23, I think.
So how do older pros, say the lads that are 32, 33, react to someone like you? I know you've got the armband, but someone who's probably 10 years their junior, like, does it take you to just keep performing at the highest level to demand that respect?
The players probably accepted that I had a long future at the club, and that obviously giving me the captain's armband I probably wasn't the best pick right at the first instant, but over a period of time they obviously trusted me to do a good job. So
would you say then that promotion was down to personnel?
Yes, I'd say it was that combination of sort of like young and hungry players. It was like me, Dave Davis, Carlo Kimi wasn't so young. You had players like you just said, like Bakary Sacco playing in League One. Sounds a bit silly now. Benny Kafobi playing in League One.
Just finally on that era, I've got to ask you about Matt Doherty. I know he's a good friend of yours, but it's obviously incredible that he's playing for a club like Tottenham now. He's got a big, multi-million pound move. Did you see that from him when he was kind of coming through the ranks in League One? I mean, you must have seen him when he first came over from Ireland, right?
Yeah, I mean, when he came over from Ireland, he was almost like a centre-back, really. He just developed, mate. He's just developed. I remember him having a stint playing at left-back for a season, which obviously wouldn't have been playing to his strengths, his out-and-out right foot. It was the real transformation came when obviously Nuno took over and we started playing with wing-backs. It really showed off his attacking prowess and his power as well going forward.
So on to FIFA 18 now. Pitch has changed. Physical's slowly creeping up. They're still killing you.
Yeah, I mean the weak foot rating at 3 is it out of 5?
Yeah.
It's not too bad considering, I play a lot of games on the left-hand side of defence, so...
2-star skill moves?
Yeah, it's probably, to be honest, mate, that's probably about right. I'm not really one to drop a double step over, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I just want to talk about kind of the latter part of your Wolves career and obviously the kind of transition into what Wolves have become now. Firstly, what was it like with that influx of, I suppose, foreign talent, money, the new owners? Like, what was that period like for you?
It was obviously a bit of a roller coaster. I think we had Walter Zenga was the first manager that Fosun appointed. Obviously didn't know much about him in terms of his managerial career. I know he was obviously a top international goalkeeper, but they signed, I think, 12 players that first season. Obviously you've got a big influx of 12 players, probably deemed not good enough in the end by Nuno. So then that second transformation was like, okay, Nuno's the new manager. We sign in Ruben Neves, Diego Jota, Willy Bolly, those kind of guys to come in.
I've got to ask you about Nuno, just kind of when he came in, obviously transformed. It looked like everything in terms of the system, the style and everything. What was Nuno like and how was that transition essentially changing the whole philosophy of how you play football?
He basically, he obviously had his philosophy and made it really clear and obvious for the players to understand, just showing us on the pitch every single day. I think pre-season, first season was mainly like 2/3 sessions a day for like 4 or 5 weeks. Little 40-minute sessions of playing out from the back or defending in the middle of the pitch, different scenarios. And
I've got to ask, I need to ask about kind of individuals. One that stands out to me is Jota, just because he's obviously got like a nearly £50 million move to Liverpool. And you would have seen him coming in first games in English football.
He obviously had natural talent. He was like cold-blooded, do you know what I mean? He'd go through on goal and you just felt that he was going to score.
Yeah.
But it was kind of, his for someone so short, he's so strong.
Yeah, I noticed that, but he doesn't look like he's actually got a lot on him either.
No, he's quite lightweight, but he's just thick set. Like his legs are strong, obviously strong core and everything, and he's just really dynamic. The back end of his Wolves career, he wasn't all that hot, was he? I mean, he was in and out of the team.
Yeah.
So the Liverpool transfer was kind of a little bit out of the blue, I think, and probably like Wolves fans might have thought, not such a bad deal in the end, given the value of the transfer. But I think you can see the effect he's had on that squad to go into the best team in the country and potentially improve the team is a massive compliment, isn't it?
Okay, so final for item. What was it like leaving Wolves? Obviously, because you've been there for so long. Were you kind of at ease with the fact that Wolves is just going on such a ridiculous path upward curve that it was just something that you weren't part of? Or
yeah, I mean, it was kind of the case of me desperate to play, basically.
Yeah.
Obviously, I didn't play every single game when we got promoted. I didn't want to go 2 years where I'm kind of in and out. I felt it was the right time to move in the end. Obviously, it wasn't easy. I think what helped it was probably going on loan before I signed for Stoke. It was kind of like a transitional period for me. Obviously, great memories of being at Wolves, and obviously glad that now they're doing so well in the Premier League. They're absolutely, I think they've exceeded expectation. I know they're not. I mean, this season fans will be moaning and having their rants, this, that, and the other. But I think you've got to take stock, haven't you, and just realise how competitive the Premier League is and how fine the margins are. So
on to Stoke, where you are now. I mean, from my perspective, it looked like for the club it was a slow start when you joined, and it looks like Michael O'Neill's really turning that ship around. I don't know whether that's something you agree with.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I signed for Stoke expecting and believing that, we had a real chance of getting promoted. What I was met with was more of a similar to like when Wolves got relegated from the Premier League. There's a lot of big players who've had good careers in the Premier League, sort of, umming and ahhing about playing in the Championship, and then all of a sudden, you're in a situation where the club's scrapping at the wrong end of the table. What is it that Michael O'Neill does so well? I mean, he's obviously done well internationally, but has he kind of brought that into club management now? He's not actually managed that much club football. Obviously, managing Northern Ireland, doing really well there. He's built a great culture there, didn't he, with some of their results and qualifications and stuff. And then I think he's slowly getting to do that at Stoke. The ability to sign players and stuff, given the coronavirus and stuff, is limited, I think, around the Championship and lower. So it might be more of a gradual transition, but I think obviously he showed in his first half season, we went from, I think we were bottom of the Championship to 14th or 15th, which is a relatively comfortable position given the kind of the form we were in. One player I want to ask about is Tyrese Campbell. Just looks like an absolute live wire. Looks like someone that could really kick on, hopefully with Stoke, but just looks like he's got a massive career ahead. I don't know. He's a really good player. I think he's having a little setback at the moment with his injury and stuff, but you can see really without him in the team what a difference it's made. I think he would have got 20 goals this season, and that could potentially have elevated us into who knows what position. That was kind of how big his injury was for the team. And then just finally, I just wanted to ask about basically your dad, and obviously your dad's Indian, and you're one of the only kind of Indian footballers. How proud are you of that? And I suppose why don't we see many Indian footballers as well in the English game? For me, I've always been proud of it, really. He's obviously supported me massively in my career, and I've started doing a bit of work with the PFA recently to try and support and mentor players of Asian backgrounds that are coming through academies, and trying to give those players that extra bit of support and confidence to reach out to senior players who can advise them, and in the hope that there'll be more of those players coming through and playing professionally.